Hey and welcome, I'm Hammeh, and could vehicle combat be coming to Overwatch now or in future? Well, the Storm Rising teaser trailer that's gone out today ahead of the release tomorrow of Overwatch's latest archive event has got people very excited. In this video I'm going to quickly go through what we see in this final teaser trailer, have a look in terms of lore and story, a few of my thoughts on the trailer and cool things we might see, talk a bit about how likely or not vehicle combat might be, and then quickly go through the 5 skins and 1 highlight intro that have been released over the last few days in a quick summary for you. So if you're wanting to avoid skin spoilers, skip the end of the video, and timecodes in the description below as always if you want to skip around. Well, if you haven't seen the trailer yet, do go check it out over on Twitter at PlayOverwatch or on the Overwatch YouTube channel. We see to start with the Havana Sea Fort, this place from the teasers we suspect is a Talon base, or certainly Maximilien's holdout, and probably where his cavalcade is going to, that we see in this trailer. We get some Max voiceover. Everyone you know, everything you do can be bought and sold. The price of loyalty is always changing. Now, Maximilien is apparently voiced by Stefan Kornikar. He has been in Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow, Spectre, and PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, and indeed Saving Private Ryan, amongst other things. Video game wise, he's done a fair chunk of work in Horizon Zero Dawn, Total War Warhammer, Dark Souls 3, Dark Souls 2 and some other things as well. So a cool sinister side to Max's voice there. We hear Sojourne of the teasers, presumably an Overwatch second in command, potentially after Ana Amari has gone missing, the one who was talking to Morrison in the teaser that we heard, talking about the fact that they've waited a long time for Max to show his face, and Tracer says there's no pressure, it's now or never. We then see Tracer, Winston, Genji and Mercy swing into action as per the teasers. Very interesting. We also see Tracer on a bike and a lot of fighting action. This is probably just before Doomfist capture in the timeline. Remember that Doomfist was captured by a team involving Tracer, Genji and Winston. We've seen that in Doomfist's origin trailer already, in that really cool sort of animated one. So whether or not Overwatch actually catch Max at the end, maybe they do some kind of deal with him, complete speculation, they presumably get something, whether it's him or information, that leads them to be able to get Doomfist afterwards. This core team, Genji, Winston and Tracer, as I've said, was in that trailer too. Now these guys aren't in their Overwatch uniforms that we've seen, the strike team uniforms of the events of Uprising. Why? Now, they were very obviously Overwatch in King's Row, even though they weren't meant to be there. Remember that in Uprising, Overwatch were not invited in by the British Prime Minister, and Morrison sent the strike team anyway. This leads me to think we're going to get some interesting context as to Overwatch's final days and final moments, and if Overwatch passed or failed this mission, if they captured Doomfist, then why did they finally sort of fall low, and what happened with Morrison and Reyes at the Swiss headquarters? With archives and some of the past lore we've had recently, we're getting more of a picture, really in an intense period of this time just before Overwatch's fall, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what the interactions say, but food for thought as to why they're not in their real Overwatch uniforms here. Next cool thing I saw thinking about this, there do seem to be a few bits in here that don't seem to be standard gameplay, as I put it. I mean, there are things that could be very well posed in-game by lots of players and things like that, but I think that we're going to see some more in-game cinematic, like we've seen with Junkertown, the plan previously, and also for Retribution when we saw that cool little intro at the beginning. So one thing that makes me believe this, have a look at this bit in slow-mo of Mercy's face and poise as she whooshes past this car towards the camera. Now she's holding her staff, her Caduceus staff, one-handed, and her facial expression, I don't believe that we see, bar highlight intros, Mercy in-game with her staff in one hand flying like that, or her face quite like that. That looks to me, it feels like it's a bit, if not just for this intro trailer, it's a bit out of perhaps an in-game cinematic, I don't know. But we've seen really cool in-game cinematic, as I've said, with Retribution, so I'm hoping that that's continued here. And for you Mercy fans, this could well be the first time in-game that we actually see Mercy in a cinematic. We've seen Tracer at work, we've seen Genji at work, we've seen Winston at work, so for Mercy fans, hopefully we could get some good Mercy character, Mercy lore and sort of background here as well. Fingers crossed. Okay, a quick thought on vehicle combat and its likelihood of it coming to Overwatch. Now we do see Tracer on a bike in a very cool sequence here. So could this be something we do in-game? Well, it's possible, but I wouldn't confirm it, and I would probably, on my sort of side of things thinking about it, be a bit more calmer about it and then see what happens. Now I have in my notes, and if you've been an Overwatch watcher like myself, and I'm sure many of you guys have been for quite some time, way back in December 2017, Blizzard announced they were hiring a senior software engineer for gameplay vehicles. The gameplay developer sort of listing said that they wanted someone to help create vehicles and build vehicle handling features in a robust first-person engine for an unannounced project. Now, how many robust first-person engines does Blizzard have? Well, if it's not their own Overwatch engine, what is it? Are they using a different engine? Who knows? An unannounced project? Well, we've not seen anything new first-person announced by Blizzard. and we know that there are no new games coming this year. Who knows what's going to be announced at BlizzCon 2019, but there's nothing like new that we know is going to be releasing this year. So we have seen vehicles in Overwatch, in a sense, in Retribution. Remember the dropships, the skiffs, these animated vehicles coming in and moving in and similar. I'm excited for this bike. I saw it and went, oh, what if we can ride that bike as Tracer? That'd be absolutely amazing. However, one thing I just thought about afterwards was, if you think of the size of an average Overwatch level, and Blizzard are building these events around levels. We know that for Rialto, they designed the level and then sort of designed it specifically so that they could have archives in it, and then scaled it back a bit so it could be used as the escort map that we play in ladder and in the game. So my question there is, if Tracer's on a bike driving through Havana, how big does that level have to be for that chase sequence, that driving sequence, to be meaningful? And then is that something that Blizzard would actually make beyond a level? You know, the Rialto level that we played beyond the actual sort of map that we play in Retribution. Well, if you think about it, there's that whole cafe area we don't actually play, and there are a few other bits that we jumped into as well. I guess Blizzard designing a map that they'd scale into a playable map for Archives and for the game. If you were going to have a map big enough to have a driving section feeling meaningful, that's almost designing a whole bigger, a whole separate map, so that there's just enough scale and enough space so that you can drive at speed on a bike to make that section feel meaningful, unless they've got some kind of repeating section or something like that, or something that sort of repeats or generates corners or something. You know, that there are ways that you could do it without designing a huge map for the bike to go through. I'm sure there's some kind of repeating sort of coding or technology you could use to make it feel like you were driving through the streets, but you were looking left, looking right, you know, kind of procedurally generated as you were going. But that was my one thought as to how could they make a meaningful section of a driving game, of a driving level, in the size of your standard Overwatch map, for it to feel fast and make it feel that you were actually travelling a bunch of distance. So I don't know if we're going to see vehicle combat in this. I'd love it if we do. I'm perfectly happy to be proven wrong, but that's the challenge I immediately think of. As I've said, you know, Blizzard were hiring for a talented gameplay engineer. Vehicles could be coming into Overwatch, or something to do with Overwatch in the future, perhaps, unless this unannounced project is something completely different. So I'm very, very excited for the event tomorrow, and we're going to be jumping into the 5 skins and highlight intro that were introduced. So if you want to be spoiler free, look away now. Check out my other videos in the playlists below. First up, we have none other than Racer Zarya. So not every skin is, of course, directly lore related. It'll be interesting to see how this is actually tied in. I think this one's okay. It's quite cool looking. If you look, it reminds me of real sort of Spitfire, sort of mix of Overwatch League skin vibes. It does have like kind of split racer palette. So maybe not my number one skin. Next up, we have Gushin Bastion. Now, I called this, as well as many of you guys, I think, this is very much Bastion, straight out of the style of Omnic that we saw attacking Korea in Diva's animated short, Shooting Star. Loving this evil-looking Omnic vibe. Next up, Formal 76 here. Now, a lot of people have seen this as being the kind of medal shot from the Are You With Us trailer. Remember, of course, that was told to be a little bit too young in terms of the way they look, so perhaps this is him from his very early days, or maybe from his US Army days, but looking good there. We now have Deadlock McCree. So McCree fans of Soldier's Face are happy, because you've got his face out of his helmet there. McCree, now a younger, even looking McCree than the Blackwatch McCree that we have as well. So McCree fans, your cup runneth over with this pretty cool skin and very, very cool jacket. Last but not least, we have High Roller Hammond, looking very, very swaggy, I think, personally, with those sunglasses there. Gold. I'm certainly going to be adding this to my hamster ball collection. And a cool thing that Overwatch also teased in as well, there was a reply to someone on Twitter with this highlight intro. Now, you might recognise this as Dramatic Chipmunk the meme, a very, very dramatic looking creature looking over its shoulder from online, so I'm loving to see that in there as well. Thank you for tuning in. If you like this video, please throw a like, subscribe, comment. I'm going to be covering everything to do with Overwatch Storm Rising, and most importantly its lore, story, and the interactions, voice lines and similar that come out of it from tomorrow onwards. So do keep an eye out on my channel in the next couple of weeks, and indeed onwards too. I've got a bunch of longer stuff I'm working on for you, Overwatch and otherwise, so do keep an eye out for some of those. There are going to be some new pilots of some new things. Really looking forward to see what you think about those. Big thanks to my patrons on Patreon who make a lot of my stuff possible. My Patreon has been paused for a while. I'm going to get it going again potentially soon. Do check that out at patreon.com/Hammeh if you like any of my Overwatch content or any of the new stuff I try and like to support it too. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammeh.